Welcome to Candidate Conversations. Thank you so much for being here. Have some brief announcements. Kind of the important thing, restrooms are right outside the door if you're not familiar with Noblesville High School. Men's room's over here, ladies' room is over here. You have emergency exits right down here and right in the back should you need them. For the courtesy of our candidates audience and home viewing, we are recording tonight courtesy of Hamilton County Television. We ask for no flash photography, no cameras that make clicking sounds when you take pictures as well, and no signs or holding up t-shirts and things like that. And we ask you to remain seated throughout the course of the event. So I think I got all of the required legal requirements out of the way. Our facilitator for Candidate Conversation tonight is Patrick Probst. Patrick is from Missouri, but he's been here for 17 years. He met his wife while studying at Anderson University, and they have lived in Noblesville for 15 years with their 3 children. He's the lead pastor at Faith Community Church in Noblesville, and he's the executive director of Serve Noblesville. Patrick always seizes the opportunity that those roles give him to unite different voices for purposes of unity and improvement in and around our community for all those who live here. So we thought he was an appropriate person to facilitate our conversation tonight. So Patrick, it is all yours.
Thank you. And welcome to this tonight. Bob's been wrong before. We'll see how he did tonight with the choice. Welcome to the first of 3 candidate conversations, and on behalf of Hamilton County League of Women Voters and the Noblesville Chamber, thank you for coming out tonight and attending. As he said, I am Patrick Probst, your conversation facilitator this evening. This will be the first of 3 forums. Tonight we'll be having a conversation with the candidates and the panelists. Next month we will be having a swimsuit competition, and the final forum will be them displaying their talents. Hold on. Is that? Oh, that's not it? All right. You sure? Okay. I am mistaken. We will be having a conversation forum for all 3 rounds. I'm sorry about that. Mine's way more fun. Our esteemed panelists' roles is to engage in the 4 candidates in conversation. Together, our goal is to provide a series of forums where residents and the voters, who are you, have a chance to learn about each of the following: the candidate's vision, the leadership approach, public policy positions, and specific plans to advance our city. This is a conversation tonight. This is not a debate. And William Hazlitt said the art of conversation is the art of hearing as well as being heard. So candidates, we invite you to please listen as well as to prepare your responses to the questions that are provided. We also ask you to provide us transparency. This was something that each of you stated as a key component of your campaigns. So please, no political posturing. That gets boring for us, the hearers. We'd like to hear about your leadership, but also to see your humanity tonight. Likewise, audience, the panel is not your firing squad, or you are not the firing squad for them. We're not trying to get them. We want to have a conversation. The etymology of the word conversation is to live among, to have familiarity, and to create intimacy. And so the hope is that we will do that tonight and over the next 2 forums, as we share in conversation. The philosophy professor of USC, Dallas Willard, said that curiosity and judgment cannot coexist. And so come tonight in the spirit of curiosity to listen and to hear and to live with and among one another in community as we listen to the candidates and their positions. We've segmented the candidates' conversation into 3 monthly themes. Tonight, we will cover the theme of people and relationships. On March 11th, we will cover places and things, and on April 8th, we will cover economy and finances. Again, tonight's theme is people and relationships, and the Chamber and the League have reached out to several local agencies and nonprofits serving Noblesville and residents to gather inputs on the need of Noblesville residents. The public has also been invited to submit questions online. Each question tonight is a composite from many things in our community. You're also asked tonight to submit questions. There will be cards that are available to be passed around to write those. You'll see folks in the aisles ready to receive those, and we will have a special section later in the conversation where those will be asked. Know that all questions that are submitted, even if they are not asked from the stage, will be submitted to the candidates afterwards, and some may be addressed later on in the other forums. Candidates, tonight we will be in conversation with our distinguished panel of Noblesville residents. Let me introduce them to you now. Norman Burns is the president and CEO of Conner Prairie Museum. He's an entrepreneurial museum and a nonprofit management leader for over 32 years. He has a history of successful developing innovative approaches and compelling vision for operating history and general museums. Leading 6 museums in 3 states as CEO, Burns' commitment to history and preservation has met personal service on the boards of cultural tourism, preservation, and conservation agencies across 3 states. He has numerous local, state, regional, and national museum organizations, including the vice chair of American Association for State and Local History, and serves as the vice chair of Hamilton County Tourism. Norman and his wife Sandy have been married for 34 years and have 3 grown sons and a granddaughter. Also, Jenna Stewart has lived in Noblesville over 20 years. She and her husband Doug have 2 children. She's a former practicing attorney and currently serves as an issue advocate with the League of Women Voters of Indiana. She's a member of the Noblesville Chamber of Commerce Business Advocacy Committee. In 2018, Jenna competed in the Mrs. Indiana America pageant with the title of Mrs. Noblesville and has used her platform to promote civic engagement. I want to thank you both for serving as panelists and being here tonight. Yes. This is the format for the night. The format is structured, and yet we still want to have some level of flexibility. And so you'll be each offered 90 seconds of an opening statement, as well as a 90-second closing statement. And we've picked the order of those prior to beginning. Questions will have answer times from anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds, and I will watch that and guide that and make those determinations. Bob will be helping us with the timer and making sure we stay on track down front, and he showed you the 15-second warning and the stop sign, and I have a taser. And finally, we want to welcome the candidates. Vince Baker, Mike Corbett, Chris Jensen, and Julia Kazicki. On behalf of all the residents, we want to thank you for offering your servanthood and your leadership and service to the community. We'd like to now invite you to make your opening statements. We've selected an order beforehand, and the way that they open will be the reverse order as they close. And so, Mike, would you please?
Thank you, Patrick. And thank all of you for coming out tonight on this slushy evening. Thank you to the League for hosting this, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce as well. It was great to hear that this forum is going to be focusing on people and relationships, because I am concerned about that it's often the people who are left out of conversations in City Hall. You've seen it in discussions of the Nickel Plate Railroad, the Levinson, and even the Santa House controversy. The people speak and City Hall doesn't listen. It's no wonder citizens are disengaged, considering they're often ignored when discussing some of the most important decisions the city faces. My campaign is all about bringing the people back into the discussion. I will change the culture in City Hall to one of openness. I will improve transparency and re-engage with the people. I believe I'm uniquely qualified to bring these changes to our political environment. I'm a small business owner, and I'm not a native of Noblesville. I made a conscious decision to move here and start a business because I see the potential in Noblesville. I've worked in multiple industries for large and small corporations in 9 different cities. Living and working around the country has given me a unique background, an interest in community development, and a wealth of business and cultural experience. The playbook the political establishment has been using here is flawed. It caters to donors and business interests, not to you, the people. I will rewrite the book, keeping what works and improving what doesn't. I'm the most qualified person, I believe, among the 4 of us to lead this city to greater heights, and I look forward to working with you and for you as the next mayor of Noblesville. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Chris?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Jensen, and I appreciate you all coming out tonight as we gather together to discuss the future of my hometown. I'm running for mayor on 4 specific policy pillars, an agenda for Noblesville's next chapter. First, I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight. I would also like to thank my 3 opponents for joining me in this conversation. We need to transform how we approach public safety in Noblesville. We need to protect and enhance our downtown core. We need to develop a strong and sustainable workforce and make smart investments in our infrastructure. Now more than ever is the time to address the public safety issues we're facing here in our community. And tonight, we're here to discuss the heart of our city, its people, and our relationships. Our city is strong because of the strength of our community and the traditions that bind us together. We need to give our first responders the tools and training necessary to tackle the challenges of tomorrow. Now more than ever, we need to invest in a workforce, a highly skilled workforce that will bring the jobs and the talent and the companies to buoy our economic base into the future. And finally, we need to think regionally. We need to work with other cities, the county, state, and local organizations to find new ways to help our neighbors, grow our economy, and make Noblesville a safer community. Over the next 12 weeks, I am genuinely excited to have this conversation with voters all across my hometown as I work to earn your trust and your vote on May 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Vince?
Hi, I'm Vince Baker. I would like to thank the League and the Chamber of Commerce for letting us come out and give us, you give questions and we can give your views. I am probably the newest at this. My opponents here have been through this in some form or another. Basically, I'm just going to give you my bio and what my platform is for. I'm a lifetime Noblesville resident. I'm a graduate of Noblesville High School and a graduate of MMI, which is a Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I graduated Noblesville in 1990 and graduated MMI in 2005. I am happily married to my wife, Tracy, of 20 years, and we have one son, Mason, which graduated Noblesville in 2018. I currently hold the position of Urban Forester with the Street Department here in Noblesville. Basically, that's just a real quick review of, I just maintain the city street trees throughout the city. Those duties range from planting, pruning, removing, storm damage, personal communication with Noblesville residents. I also help in daily duties, which is presented to me. I have also served as the ABATE, which is American Biker aimed towards education of Hamilton County. I was a representative for the last 2 years, and I've been involved in the organization for 5. ABATE is the nation's largest nonprofit motorcycle organization, which focuses on education, safety. I am passionate about Noblesville, of course, with me working for the city for the past 15 years. My campaign will be run honestly, positive insight, transparency. I am committed to listening to all the concerns and issues that face the city.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Julia?
Good evening, and thank you to the Chamber and the League for hosting this conversation. For the first time in a generation, we have an open primary for mayor of Noblesville. No incumbent, no presumptive heir, just the 4 of us who have submitted our applications. And now the citizens of Noblesville have the chance to interview and decide who you want to hire as the next mayor to serve our city. Let me tell you why I'm the most qualified candidate. First, like my friends here, I'm a Noblesville native. I chose to return and raise my family here. For the last 16 years, I've served as legal counsel as an attorney at Sigma Kappa, a national women's organization, and including some time serving there as an interim executive director. I'm a graduate of the Lugar Series for Excellence in Public Service, and I'm a graduate, past board president, past dean, and distinguished alumna of the Hamilton County Leadership Academy. Most importantly, I'm a 3-term, 12-year member of the Noblesville School Board. During that time, we hired 2 superintendents and made a number of other important and difficult decisions for our community. And what I've learned is the importance of collaboration and transparency in leadership. From that experience, I commit to you that I will bring those lessons to City Hall. Our citizens deserve to understand what options are available and provide meaningful input on the issues that face our community, from public safety to growth and development. As you make your hiring decision this spring, I ask you vote for Julia Church-Kozicki for mayor on May 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, just a reminder that there are note cards that you may write questions and submit that will be used later in the forum tonight. And with no further delay, let's begin with the focus on people and relationships. Norman Burns will ask the first question, and I'm going to allow 90 seconds per candidate for this one as we get started. Norman?
Thank you, Patrick. Candidates, we want to thank you for your spirit of service and passion for the Noblesville community. Thank you for being here this evening. As you've heard, tonight's theme is about how, as our new mayor, you will interact with the people in our Noblesville community and the types of relationships that you will build to improve it. There are many different styles of leadership, from authoritarian to transformational to servant leadership. I have a three-part question for you. First, what type of leader will you be? What type of leadership style do you believe is most relatable and relevant to the present-day environment for the Noblesville community? And why do you believe that's the case?
All right, I'll take the question. They let us self-regulate on who answers first, and that's going to get dicey. In terms of what type of leader I'll be, I think, Norman, you hit on some very good points. I think the leader that I will be is the leader that I am today, and that's a leader that listens to its residents. I'm a current city council member, and I work very hard day in and day out to make sure that I am listening to the wants and needs of the folks of District 2 here in Noblesville as a member of the city council. But I also believe that it's important that a leader is elected to lead. And we have to bring ideas together, listen to the community, and we have to push forward. I think Noblesville, I have said for a long time, does not have an ideas problem. We have an implementation problem. It is time for us to move forward on some ideas that, quite frankly, we have announced decades ago. It's time for action. It's time for leadership. It's time to listen to our community, but it's time to move this city forward. That's the type of leader I believe, and it's why I think that that is the best leader for Noblesville's next chapter.
Julia, we'll go down the line, and so Julia, go ahead and go next, and then we'll just rotate around.
Thank you. During my service with the school board and in the conversations we've had in a number of the organizations I've been a part of, we talk about, first of all, that collaboration, the need to make sure you're gaining the understanding of the needs of all the people, all the stakeholders in the process. So as we've had issues come up, we've gone out and had a number of public forums. I have to say, looking at the crowd this evening, this is outstanding. I've attended a lot of forums in this room where there have been a third of this many people or less. So I'm delighted that you're all engaged in this process. But I think it's important that we have those collaborative conversations so that people understand what the issues are and how we can work together to, if not achieve consensus, at least make sure that our citizens understand why decisions are made and what criteria are used in making those decisions. I think our city has lacked an intentional element of leadership where first we have a plan and then we move it forward. I always like the phrase I learned once, implement with fidelity. Make sure that once you have the plan, you carry it forward. And that's another important part of leadership to me as well. So making sure that we have those conversations and that we gain understanding and create opportunities for input and then move forward as the leader that I hope to be and choose to be.
Thank you, Julia. Vince?
My definition of leader is, don't do this, don't just expect somebody to go out and do it. Ask them to do it. We need to get our community more involved in what's going on. We have a lot of stuff that's being implemented right now with the legislature that it just seems like, the community's not even involved. So, let's just step back a little bit and get the community's insight besides just going forward, with just one game plan.
Great. Thank you. Mike?
I would characterize my leadership style as collaborative. I recognize that a leader needs to set the vision for the community, but once he does that, he then needs to be willing to go out and find other interests within the community, other people within the community that are willing to come along and follow his vision. And I believe a leader has to be persuasive. I believe once the leader sets the vision, it's incumbent on him to then go out and make sure that that vision is transformed. I would disagree with Chris a little bit in that I think we do have a dearth of ideas in Noblesville. I think that we need some new ideas. We need to set a new path. And I think I'm the leader to do that. The second part of the question was, would you repeat the second part of the question?
Which leadership style do you think is best for Noblesville at this time?
At
And you
this
kind of
particular
addressed that.
time, at this particular time, we definitely need to see a new vision. So I would, I would not say that I'm a dictatorial leader. I'm not the kind of person that comes in and cleans house. I'm the kind of person that comes in, takes a look at what we've got to work with, finds the best people, and moves forward.
Thank you, Mike. Jenna?
This next question relates to vision. What will Noblesville look like in 4 years or 8 years under your leadership?
Let's take 60 seconds on this question, and Julia, we'll let you start this one.
Thank you, Jenna. In 4 years, or at the conclusion of my administration, whenever that happens, we will be a city that has adequate infrastructure. We're going to have well-managed roads and bridges so that our community can travel appropriately. We will have growth and additional economic development so that we have an increased tax base which supports the needs of our community. And we'll have a community that is engaged in the process so that people have set the vision for our community, perhaps returning to the benchmarking strategies of old so that all of us have the opportunity to set the vision and then see how it is implemented so that we work together as a community. Thank you.
The future I see in 4 years is, I hope we have better thoroughfares. We need to focus on keeping, our downtown. We don't need to bring in big infrastructure that's being proposed. I'm all for infrastructure, but I think we need to focus on keeping it more of a downtown feel.
Thank you.
In 4 years, we will have, the public will be much more engaged with City Hall. City Hall will be reaching out to try to include the public in decisions that are being made there. We will have started to transform the west side of the river. I believe the west side of Noblesville, around Federal Hill Park, is developed on the wrong scale and style, and we need to correct that. In 4 years, we will have a train back in Noblesville. I'm disappointed that we don't have one now. We will, at the same time, Firestone we will have something going on at Firestone. We will have evaluated by that time what is buildable there, what we can work on, and we will have started working on it.
Thank you. In 4 or 8 years, Noblesville is going to be the same city it is today. The same city that you and I call home because we love the small town feel and historic charm. But it's going to be a city that is focusing on the future of its infrastructure, that has a plan for public safety that deals with the challenges of tomorrow, has a plan for how we're investing in our downtown, which is our best asset, and making it an even greater asset, and has a plan to get our workforce trained up and skilled up for the jobs of tomorrow. Noblesville isn't going to change in the way it looks. Noblesville is going to be better in its next chapter when it has a plan, a proactive plan for its future in those 4 areas.
Great. Thank you. Norm?
You've all done a wonderful job of articulating your vision, and you each have platforms. But the question I have for you now is, what is the biggest problem facing Noblesville that no one is talking about?
Vince?
I want to echo what I said before. I think that the past administration is pushing stuff through and not letting the community have a say. They are listening to the community, but they're getting stuff through too quickly. And I think that they need to work on getting more city leaders involved in some of the stuff that's going on. I don't agree with it.
I think that the biggest problem that people aren't paying attention to is the lack of engagement. Although actually seeing all these people, I believe people want to be engaged, but that because the city's not reaching out and engaging people and letting them have a say into how our downtown is being developed, I believe that's the biggest problem that we've got right now, and it's easily solvable.
Thanks for the question, Norman. You asked a 3-part question at first. I'm going to give you a 2-part answer on this one. First of all, I think one of the biggest challenges we face that we're not talking about is how we pay for our infrastructure going forward. We have roughly $200 million in infrastructure needs in the city of Noblesville. How do we pay for that moving forward? Second part of that, I think mental health is a huge issue that we're not talking about. I mentioned it early on, but we save someone with Narcan due to heroin overdoses once every 3.5 days in the city of Noblesville. That all stems back to a mental health problem that I applaud our schools for starting to take the mantle on, but the city needs to step up, acknowledge we have an issue, and start talking about it proactively in our community.
I would agree. I think the main thing that we're not talking about enough in Noblesville right now is mental health and heroin opioid addictions. We have a significant issue, and are we providing adequate resources for our public safety officials, for our hospital, and for our schools to help support those residents who need help so that they can address these severe challenges? I hope that that's something that we'll be able to address in the next 4 years.
I want to interject here. You've all have talked about the importance of getting feedback and hearing from the community, that is something that you feel is necessary. Obviously, it's apparent by the crowd that has shown up here. I want you to take 30 seconds and tell me how you are going to engage the community to have that conversation and to get the feedback that you know that is necessary to move forward. Mike, I'll ask you to start.
I think, first off, we need to reinstate the group that the group that was consisted of HOA presidents. There was an HOA organization in City Hall at one time that was meant to try to reach out to the community and see what people are thinking so that City Hall could reflect the thoughts of people. Secondly, City Hall just in general just needs to, we need to have more events in City Hall, more opportunities for people to get up and talk, and when they talk, we need to make sure that City Hall, being the City Council and the Mayor, are responding.
Great question. You know, there's a phrase that we talk about in our household, and it's meeting the people where they are. And I believe if you know me, you'll find me pretty much every day at Noble Coffee and Tea, but I think it's important that we take government and its leaders in this community to the people. Not only through social media, but holding community forums, being visible, making sure our city council members are visible out in their districts, helping to be the boots on the ground, take a grassroots approach to make sure that they know that it is their city hall, that we are there paid by the taxpayers and working for them. And that's the type of leadership style that we'll have going forward.
It's a great question, Patrick. Communication is such a challenge in today's world because we're bombarded from every angle in so many different ways. But I think it's critical that our city leaders are available. I'm going to start, as Dr. Niedermeyer has done with the schools, I plan to start regular monthly coffees where I'll be in the community available for questions and comments starting on Tuesday the 26th. But also opportunities to engage with our community through every method, whether it's social media, whether it's through the news, whether it is in our newsletters, in our sewer bills. We have to share the information so that we are accessible to others.
I want to echo with Mike. I agree. We need to bring our HOA stuff back to City Hall. That would be probably the best thing to start with.
Great. Thank you. Jenna?
This next question relates to transparency and communication with people in the city. Often when the city undertakes big development projects, there are non-disclosure agreements. And is there a way to ensure that community members are informed and their feedback is gathered with regard to these big projects?
Chris, we'll start with you, and I'm going to let 60 seconds.
Sure. You know, it's no doubt you turn on the TV and you turn on the news and you know why citizens have a distrust in government. It's not easy to miss. I think you're right. I think it's important that folks have an opportunity to give feedback on major projects. There are non-disclosure agreements, but I think it's imperative that when we get to the public process, when there are months-long discussions about public projects, that city council members and the administration are open and have that dialogue and invite that dialogue. Obviously, we respect property rights of private individuals when it comes to a lot of these projects, but the minute it is able to become public, we need to make sure we are proactively going into the community and having these discussions to make sure we hear their voices going forward.
Well, I certainly don't want to diminish the legal rights of those who sign non-disclosure agreements. But I think when we're talking about projects that involve utilizing city property, those, when we're selling city assets, we need to be publicizing, assessing the value of the property and sharing that information and asking for bids from the community before we move forward with those projects, specific to the one on 8th and Maple. But otherwise, we need to make sure that we leave adequate time as we start the public process so that people have the opportunity to engage and share their concerns.
With non-disclosure agreements, I agree. We need to make sure that as soon as possible, when it can be made public record, we need to make it public record so that the residents of the city are informed as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there have been instances when the public has learned about a lot of these projects too late to do anything about them. I recognize that we have hired the city council to make a lot of these decisions for us. They are charged with going in and finding out all the details and making decisions based on what they learn. But when we're talking about major issues like the first apartment complex in downtown Noblesville in a century, or getting rid of our train, those are the kinds of things. And there needs to be somebody in City Hall that recognizes that, hey, this is a little bit unusual. This is a little special, and maybe we ought to get in front of the public now to find out what the public thinks before we make all the decisions and just let them know what decision we've made later.
Thank you. Norm?
I believe as candidates, we can all say that we want to have Noblesville to be a very welcoming place for everyone. The way you engage its citizenry, but also the way the city government works. To do that, I would like to ask you, what specific plans will you have to make Noblesville more diverse, equitable, accessible, and inclusive for everyone?
Thank you for the question. I think we've started some outstanding work through the Noblesville Diversity Coalition and continuing to engage that process to ensure that our citizens are appreciating the diversity of our community. We like to talk in the schools. We have an elementary where there are 54 different languages spoken at home. And so as someone who's lived here my entire life, it's hard to imagine that we have that much diversity in our school population, but we do. So making sure that our community, our oldest and our newest residents, appreciate the vast array of citizens that we have in our community and welcome all of us. We had a great quote from our Diversity Coalition. Communities thrive when people feel love, security, and belonging. And we need that for all of our citizens. So making sure everyone feels the opportunity to be welcome and heard is crucial.
Thank you.
That is a great question. As Julie said, I think the Diversity Coalition is probably our first step. And, most of my answers and stuff here are going to be direct. It's not going to be ongoing. So I just want you to know that now. Thank you.
I also believe that the Diversity Coalition and the work that they're doing is terrific. We need to be out there and be a welcoming community. A lot of times we don't realize that the community may not seem welcoming to people, even though none of us have the intention of making it seem like a closed community. But unless you actually are proactive and you go out and reach out and welcome people, they're not always welcome in the community. I just yesterday was invited to attend a service at the Sikh Temple, which is in Fishers, but serves the Noblesville community. We actually have 300 Sikh families that live in Noblesville. Who knew? I did not know that. And they have a very unique culture. It was eye-opening for me. The fact that we've got that in Noblesville and these 54 different languages, is that what you said, are spoken in the schools is amazing to me. It is a multicultural world. We need to be part of it. I think we need to continue the work that the Diversity Coalition is doing, and Noblesville will be better off for it.
Yeah, I keep sitting here thinking about how I can say exactly what they said in a different way. But I do applaud the efforts of the Diversity Coalition. I know all of us have been to several of those conversations. But I will also note when I left, I realized that some of the people that need to be at the Diversity Coalition discussions aren't there. And I think with leadership at City Hall that portrays a welcome and opening community, that proactively goes into those different communities that Mike touched on, not just social diversity, but economic diversity as well here in our community, who's open to that and willing to go and discuss that and shed light on those conversations, that type of leadership will help Noblesville be a more inclusive, diverse place going forward.
Thank you.
So we all know that Noblesville is a great place to work and live. So if you could kind of elaborate on that, what do you think makes Noblesville a great place to work and live? And then, since we do seem to be attracting so many folks, housing it becomes an issue. And so when it comes to housing, what's your philosophy, and how would your administration support accessible and affordable housing for all people at all income levels?
Vince?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. So the first part would be, what, in your opinion, makes Noblesville a great place to work and live? The first part.
The first part, it's the people. I've worked for Noblesville for 15 years, and I have been to many homes, discussed what needs to be done. It's the people. And the second question?
The second part, it relates to housing. Since we are a great place to work and live, we attract folks, and how can we make sure that we have housing for people at all income levels?
We have a wide array of housing, from the Noble Manor, which is government subsidized, all the way up to homes that are $500,000 or more. I think as of that, Noblesville's doing a great job, and I think the administration has done a great job.
I think what makes Noblesville great is its authenticity and what separates us from many other communities. We have taken the time, and we have people in the community that have been careful to retain our historic character. We have the courthouse square. That atmosphere, that scale, is what makes Noblesville special from a visual perspective. However, one other thing that also I think makes Noblesville very special is our diversity, and I'm not talking just racial diversity, but income diversity. The fact that we have housing, and we traditionally have been a working class community. We welcome people of all income scales, and that's wonderful. The very best thing we can do to try to make sure that we retain affordable housing is to stop knocking houses down. The best and most affordable house is the one that's already built, and we need to just take care of the houses that we've got. We need to keep adding to them. I like the results of the housing study that was done within the past couple of years. We need to make sure that we bring a lot of that to fruition.
Yeah, what makes Noblesville a great place to live, work, and raise a family is not only its people, but I would say our investment in quality of life initiatives. We've seen heavy investment in our parks and our urban core. We've seen investments in the trail system around our community, and we need to do more of that. And I think that's what will attract people to live, work, and play all here in Noblesville. Housing is really a regional conversation, in my opinion. We realized the last couple of years there was a study that showed Noblesville has 25% of the land mass here in Hamilton County, and we have 75% of the government subsidized housing. We need our partners and our neighbors to step up to the plate and be a part of that conversation. We are a community that welcomes all families. We are working towards diversifying that housing mix going forward because it's essential in order to have that diversification of housing mix going forward. But it is a regional conversation, and we need our neighbors to step up and be a part of that conversation.
Noblesville is a great place to live, work, and raise a family because of the community that we have created here in our authentic and historic town. It is a place where when you are on the courthouse square, you sense that you visually, because of the visuals of it, you sense the community that we have, and we exemplify that in the way that we treat each other on a regular basis. And I think that people choose Noblesville because they sense that when they come through our town. What we need to do in terms of housing, I agree, we had a great study done recently by the planning department, and we have some affordable housing within downtown. We have a range across the city, but we need more of that middle piece that is early millennials, it is empty nesters, the opportunity for those kinds of housing so that as we move through the life cycle of our lives, we have places where we can move around and stay within this community.
Candidates, let's move on to public safety. Noblesville, by most statistics, would be considered a safe city, yet we see evidence of violent crimes, gun violence, opioid abuse, as well as hate. So what steps will you take to enhance the level of public safety and security for our citizens?
I take a little bit of a different view of public safety. Normally, when you think of public safety, you think of police and fire, and certainly we need to make sure that we support our police and our fire fighters. But I believe that true public safety occurs when the community as a whole looks out for each other. And I'm reminded when you say that we've got an issue with opioids and so forth, that it's the intervention of families and the rest of the community that helps to keep people off of opioids. Same thing, I would make the same point with gun violence. I remember within the past few months, there was an issue out in Richmond, Indiana, where there was a potential shooter going into a school. The intervention happened at home because the shooter's mother recognized that he was a danger, called police, and intervened then. That's the kind of intervention that we need. More proactive intervention and not so much defense.
Thank you. As I outlined earlier, one of my pillars is transforming public safety, and let me elaborate on that a little bit. Public safety is not just stopping criminals and fighting fires. Public safety today, and especially highlighted in this community on May 25th, has changed. Public safety is now working with our partnerships at the schools, at Riverview Hospital, to be proactive in how we're training our first responders, giving them the tools that they need, making sure we are staffed appropriately going forward to fight the challenges of tomorrow. We have great independent organizations in this community, local nonprofits. Like I said, there are schools and our hospital. We need to form those partnerships and continue to look forward to a proactive approach on public safety going forward, because the game has changed here in Noblesville when it comes to keeping our community safe.
I agree with many of those things. We do have to continue to work on our collaborative efforts. We have great training across all of our various entities, whether it's police, fire, schools, hospital, collaborative efforts that people have utilized to work together. But we need to address those core issues, which include mental health, which include drug addiction, that lead to the issues that we then need to address in an immediate situation. So continuing to focus on how we can support our families earlier, youth assistance being a great example of how we have worked to address those situations early on so that people are prepared to be ready for the challenge when they come.
I agree with these three also, but I also believe that we also need to educate the community to where they can actually help with public safety.
Jenna?
This question relates to making sure that everyone in our community has adequate food and shelter. We know that approximately 25% of Noblesville school students are on free and reduced lunches. We know that we have members of our community that face food insecurity issues. And recent data indicates that there are about 70 school children in our schools that are homeless. So what will your administration, what will the plan be to address food insecurity and homelessness in our city?
Chris?
Sorry, I lost track. Great question. You know, we are so fortunate to have some of the organizations we have here in Hamilton County, and I'll highlight one. My mom will be very proud. Good Samaritan Network, she volunteers there Friday mornings, is a great organization that does just exactly that, works with our most vulnerable here in Hamilton County. It was brought to my attention that we have 15 food banks here in Noblesville alone. We need to lean on those partners and highlight those partners. I think the best part of being a proactive leader is highlighting those nonprofits who are stepping up to the plate and dealing with the most vulnerable every day. Good Samaritan Network, I learned, gives out thousands of pounds of dog food on Wednesday evening. That didn't even cross my mind, that our less fortunate population at times have pets that need to be fed. So we need to highlight not just Good Samaritan, but there's great organizations like Prevail and others that have stepped up to the plate to help us really tackle these social issues, and we need, as an administration, to step up and offer them the support they need going forward.
I agree. We need to support our nonprofits, and we do have a number of outstanding examples. Fueled for School within our schools is collecting food from our students and from homes around the community to support food insecurity in our schools. But as people leave the school system, it's important that we continue to support them, whether that's through Meals on Wheels or other opportunities. The city has a place to support those. In terms of homelessness, we need to collaborate with our county and other community partners. We don't have a homeless shelter in Hamilton County, and we need to have an access for those people so that we're not at the last second opening a shelter when it's cold out, but we have a regular place that we can take people when they need that support. That's something that our city should and will encourage.
I agree. We could implement something as far as a homeless shelter. Working out in the streets, I constantly see, the homeless people out there. You see them, I see them at least once, maybe twice a day, just driving on the streets. If I'm elected mayor, I actually want to focus on getting those people the shelter that they need and actually walk up and ask their name. And with the food banks, I think we need to focus more on letting people know that the food banks are out there.
I agree with virtually everything that's been said here. I will make the point that I don't see homeless people in Noblesville on a regular basis, and maybe it's just that case of my eyes just not being open to it. Certainly, if there are children that are going hungry or going homeless, we need to respond to that. We have a wonderful tradition in Hamilton County of nonprofits filling that need, and our infrastructure has grown up that way. The township office is tradition. That's where people tell people to go. If you need a little bit of help, and the township office is there to do it. So we need to continue to support all of them. Good Samaritan is just an amazing organization. We need to continue to support all of those. If those are not meeting the need, then certainly the city needs to step up and find ways to solve problems of hunger and homelessness. But meantime, I think we need to support those collaborative efforts.
I will share here, Family Promise of Hamilton County is getting ready to get off the ground. They're looking at hiring their executive director, and they serve all of Hamilton County, and they serve families, putting homeless families into affordable and sustainable housing as they work with them. And while it's not a homeless shelter, it certainly puts us on that pathway to begin to address this. And again, if you're not familiar with that, I'd encourage you to talk to the faith communities that are involved with that and learn about that program as it gets started. You'll start hearing more and seeing more about that this spring.
As the president and CEO of one of Hamilton County's largest museums and the origin place for the city of Noblesville, you might guess that I might ask a question about the arts and humanities. Arts and humanities heighten creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving in our youth, which can lead to workforce development, something that is, once again, very critical. Noblesville has a significant investment in the cultural arts district itself. So my question for you, what are some specific ways you plan to make the arts and humanities in Noblesville a priority for your administration?
The arts are something that are very dear to my heart. I've participated in musical and theatrical activities throughout my life in Noblesville, including choir in our church. And I've been a longtime supporter of theatrical works at the Belfry in this theater where my son was recently on stage. Looking for ways to support our arts community is important. And so whether that means assisting the Belfry as they look for more opportunities for possibly a new home, whether that means encouraging our Cultural Arts Commission to reinvigorate and bring more opportunities to our downtown. The Nickel Plates Arts District is wonderful and creates wonderful opportunities for art. We have lots of opportunities for culture, and it's incumbent on the city to make sure that our citizens are aware and have this opportunity to express themselves through all of the arts.
The Nickel Plate Arts District is a great thing. Darren Peterson, thank you for everything that you do, but we need to do more. I honestly think that the arts is actually what gives these kids a better determination of what they're going to be focusing on life.
I concur. It's wonderful that the Nickel Plate Arts District is here. We need to continue to invest in that. What's interesting about Noblesville, because you know Carmel also focuses on the arts, but when you go to Carmel, it's a different kind of focus. They're more interested in selling art, and we're more interested in creating art. And I love the creativity that we've got in Noblesville, and we need to continue to develop that. We've been very fortunate that we have a number of resident artists here that is way unexpected for a community our size. So we need to continue to invest in and develop that. The performing arts, I've heard rumors that there are talks about investing in building a theater downtown, which is wonderful. The Belfry is a great institution, and frankly, I'm not sure that I would want to move that from that great institution where it is out there on Union Chapel Road in, but if it means improving the arts in the community, that's great. I will tell you, just from my own personal perspective, I have committed to attending one performance at Logan Street Sanctuary every month for the next year. It's my own little way to support the arts in Noblesville.
You know, just this past week, I had the honor of announcing our third policy pillar, which involved enhancing and protecting our downtown. And a main part of that was investing in the arts in downtown. And I'll tell you why. Because I truly believe that the arts in Noblesville is what helps define what downtown Noblesville is. I'm a proud board member of Nickel Plate Arts. I share that board membership with my friend Darren Peterson, who's chair of that board. I think we have continued to invest in arts in downtown. I think it helps define our community. I think from all the way from our students here, as Julia mentioned, her son performing on the stage. I sang Shapoopy on the stage in the Music Man several years ago. And all the way up to our adults performing at Logan Street Sanctuary or wherever that may be. Arts are what help identify Noblesville. It's what helps tells our story, and it folds nicely into our downtown narrative as a great community that supports the arts going forward.
Chris, encore on Shapoopy? Yeah.
A different night,
All right,
a different night.
The third forum, Talent Nights.
With swimsuit.
Wait, in your swimsuit. I think we're going to take two more in this, and then we'll transition to the questions that you've submitted.
This question relates to the growing older population in Noblesville. Some of the older population have individuals who are struggling to make rent, pay their heating bills, or buy food, and how can Noblesville help coordinate help where this is needed? And then another part of this question is that one of the difficulties of an aging population is loneliness. Children move away and friends die, and in the United Kingdom, they've formed a ministry of loneliness to combat this. What can Noblesville do to keep older minds active and engaged?
Vince? Oh, I thought so. Vince, you're up.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. The first part is about the growing older population struggling to make rent and pay for heat and food. How can Noblesville help with this? And then the second part is loneliness being an issue, and what can Noblesville do to help older minds be active and engaged?
I think we could partner with local communities and different chapters in the communities to come up with something that could help with the money issue with our seniors. And the second part of that, please, again.
Activities, keeping them active and engaged in the community.
Oh, also the loneliness. There's a big thing in the news now about the loneliness. I think we could, partner up again with the communities and the local leaders and, work stuff through the Parks Department and, other different ways to get the community active in partnering with those.
Once again, when it comes to paying utility bills, we depend on our partners at the Noblesville Township office. They've been very proactive in that. We appreciate that. I think we need to continue those traditions that we've had, that infrastructure that we've set up here in Noblesville to help support our seniors and others who are having financial troubles on fixed income. As far as the loneliness issue, I think a lot of that has to do with design. I'm very much in favor of traditional city design. Cities where people used to be able to be born, grow up, have a family, and then retire and live in the same neighborhood. When you have mixed uses and mixed kinds of developments within the same neighborhood, that support structure that people grow up with, they aren't separated from as they grow older. The idea of having different places that you have to move to contributes to that loneliness. So I think community support and family support goes a long way towards solving the loneliness problem.
Yeah, I'll echo in terms of partnerships. I think in terms of the affordability, we're seeing a major increase in the baby boomer population staying here in Noblesville. They want to stay here long term. And I think with that, it's going to be some financial challenges. And I think we need to work with our partners, the township trustee and other places, to help with that energy assistance that they may need going forward. Loneliness is not just a senior issue. Loneliness, I think, is behind every door in this community, along with anxiety and other places. But in terms of the senior community, I think Mike's right in the way we design some of our housing additions going forward. We're starting to see different styles of houses within new neighborhoods, from empty nester to traditional family houses. I think that will help folks age in place, as was discussed. And finally, I will say we need to work on some programming. If you are a senior, head on over to the Senior Citizen Center, which I know Julie and I have both been to. I think you were line dancing one Saturday there. You're going? You're a member? Okay, well, I wasn't going to go there. But but head on over there on Saturdays. Jim Gorby is the man, and they have a packed house and a heck of a lunch. And we need to lean on them to help do some programming within the city in our downtown on a weekly or regular basis. So sorry, Mike, about that.
I agree. We have a wonderful senior citizens organization, and we need to make sure that as they are moving from their current location, as the sheriff's department and jail continue to expand, that we make sure that they have another home in Noblesville so that people can continue to access that service, which helps both with the loneliness factor and with the income issues, because it helps connect them to services we have in our community. Making sure that we connect those seniors with lots of different organizations in our community so that they have opportunities to interact with people of all ages. Currently, the Senior Citizens Organization has kids come over from the high school and explain computer skills and technology questions that they might have. We have this in our churches as well. So we have a number of organizations across our community that work to bridge those gaps, and how we continue to make sure that we're bringing our newest senior residents into those organizations so that they have those opportunities is an important piece of making sure that all of our citizens have that sense of belonging.
If you're keeping score, we have a singer and a line dancer. We may be able to pull this talent and swimsuit thing off. Last question for this time, and then we're going to transition to the note cards from the audience.
I asked a question earlier about what you would do to promote and increase the arts and humanities in Noblesville, and you all did a wonderful job of articulating the arts side. So I'm going to give you another opportunity to address humanities as it relates to authentic environments and historic preservation. One of the reasons my wife Sandy and I chose to live in Noblesville is it is a community that reminds us of the community that we grew up in, that had a courthouse and a square, wonderful architecture, and a downtown that's authentic. As we know, there are other cities around Noblesville that have had to recreate a downtown. So what are you going to do as our new mayor to make sure that you keep the authentic experience while continuing to develop a character that our citizenry would like to see in the development of shopping and all of those types of aspects?
I appreciate that question. I'm on board with you. I'm a member of the Noblesville Preservation Alliance. I've been treasurer of that organization for 10 years. I believe we are going to retain that character and by making sure that as new development happens in downtown Noblesville, it happens on the same scale and with the same design of buildings that are already there. Now, I'm not saying that everything has to look old, but I'm saying that we have to retain the character, what appeals to you and so many other people. I will also mention, as far as the humanities are concerned, through the Noblesville Preservation Alliance, I think an important part of keeping the culture top of mind in a community is by talking about your history. Last fall, I started a program called Noble Stories, which is all about inviting people who have lived through a certain aspect of Noblesville's history to just get up and start talking about it. And Jim Wofford, who is televising this event, televises those as well. He's a great guy with a big heart. He does it at no charge because he realizes how important that is for a community. So yes, you need to get out there and you need to be talking about your culture. You need to be communicating with the newer people coming in and giving them that same sense of place that Noblesville has currently.
You know, I cringe at times when I hear on social media and other places that, you know, people are trying to turn Noblesville into Fishers or Carmel. And I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, that Fishers and Carmel are trying to turn into Noblesville. They're trying to be what we already have. We have that authenticity. We have that small town charm here in Noblesville. We must, as we continue, we have to enhance and protect our downtown, but we have to continue moving forward. And as we do that, we have to make sure that we're keeping architecture appeasing and fitting in with our downtown structure. I think that's vital to our success. It is part of our past, and it is truly our pathway to our future, retaining that going forward. I think Mike is right. The Noblesville Preservation Alliance and other organizations, Main Street even, are doing some programming that involve history in our downtown. I think it's important that we continue to tell that story, tell that narrative. So much of us grew up here, and making sure folks, the next generation, know how we got here and what our path is forward. Thank you.
I agree. It's so critical that we maintain the sense of our authentic and unique downtown. And part of that means setting standards in our downtown development areas so that we can make sure that we maintain those standards, whether that's height or scope or visual appeal. When you look at the history of our community, we've got important anniversaries coming up in the next 4 years, whether that is the sesquicentennial of Noblesville High School coming very shortly, or whether that is the bicentennial of Noblesville and Hamilton County within the next 4 years. We have lots of opportunities to celebrate our history, both our good history and our bad history, but knowing where we came from is so important. People choose Noblesville because they appreciate that history, and we want to make sure that all of our residents know it and appreciate it.
My parents are in the audience tonight. They came here in the mid-'60s, and here in October they're going to be celebrating their 55th anniversary. I wanted to get that out there. I talked to my dad a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Son," he said, we could have moved to Fishers, we could have moved to Carmel, but the reason we stayed in Noblesville is because there's a sense of a small town here. You know, you go to Carmel, it's big time. You go to Fishers, it's getting to be big time. And that's why my parents stayed here. And that's kind of what they instilled in me, you know. That's why I like Noblesville, is because it's small. I do agree with the Preservation Alliance, but we also need to remember we can't have these houses boarded up for years and years and years. We have to get something going to where we can keep the heritage and the visual aspects of Noblesville the way it should be.
We're going to now transition to questions that have come from you as you have shared them, and I believe you guys have them and have had a chance to kind of review them. And so I'm going to let them direct the questions, and we'll keep the same order, candidates moving forward, just in that rotation. So Jenna, will you start us?
Sure. This is a question from the audience, and it has to do with pooling resources. I think we talked about the fact that there were multiple food banks, and then there are multiple nonprofit agencies that folks can go to for services. But I think this question is asking about considering the creation of some sort of a central location for those agencies and services to meet people's needs. And they said a facility such as at the Empty Marsh supermarket location. It could also be maybe utilized as an emergency shelter. And then they talk about the formation of a community consortium led by the city as a possible solution. So could you speak to that? Did you understand the question? Did everybody, okay,
I'll start talking and see if I come up with an answer.
okay.
There's one thing I firmly believe as I've been in government for the last several years. Government has a real great way of screwing most things up. So I'm not always convinced that government is the answer to this, but I agree that we do need to have combined services in the social service department. I think the city can come alongside some of our folks in the private nonprofit sector to help develop a one-stop shop for whether it be homelessness or hunger or energy assistance, whatever it may be. I think the city should support that. I am a little cautious of the city leading that because, again, I think government has a way of screwing things up going forward, but I do think the city has a major role to play. And I think there are a lot of great ideas to combine those services so it is a one-stop shop for our most vulnerable citizens in Noblesville.
I agree, and conveniently, we have it already. The Good Samaritan Network is that combination of consolidated opportunity for people to go as a one-stop shop. Nancy Chance, over years, has connected to multitudes of different resources across our community to make sure that people get what they need when they need it. And so I certainly want to support the great work that she's done and make sure that it continues on as we move into the future.
I agree, 100%. I think we could, and I definitely agree with Chris, government can screw it up. I think it'd be great if we could get with the Good Samaritans or with the WIC program, but not necessarily, like Chris said, be the ones in front of it. I think we could collaborate with them and probably focus on maybe possibly getting the Marsh building or something like that. That'd be a great idea.
I agree with all that, and that I would prefer to see that happen in the private sector than to happen than government trying to do it. And to that I would add, Patrick mentioned, we have a very strong faith community in Noblesville, and they see that as part of their mission, and rightfully so. And I think we benefit tremendously from the multiple churches that we have here that step up and do that very kind of work and have facilities actually where they can use it. And I say we let them run it because they're good at it and they're passionate about it.
I would agree with you. I would also say the government does not do a good job, but sometimes they need the influence of the government to help create the pathways to make it easier for the non-for-profits to do the work and the services that they're wanting to provide for the community. So.
Patrick, there's several questions from the audience related to the development of shopping, entertainment, dining with good parking in downtown Noblesville. So I see this as somewhat of a follow-up to the question I asked, where you kind of focused on Noblesville being authentic and preservation, but yet we do know that our surrounding communities like Carmel and Fishers has developed downtown districts that are really doing that. So I think the questions are, how is Noblesville going to develop and be competitive with these other cities while keeping that once again, authentic flair, if you will? Shopping, entertainment, dining, good parking. That's the theme of these 3 cards.
Well, I mean, the great thing is that the free market system allows people to continue to develop those things within our community. And we continue to see new restaurants coming into our downtown, coming into our various shopping areas around the community, whether it is in Hamilton Town Center or 146th and Hazeldale, up in Kerrigan Road. We have lots of great opportunities where people can shop and dine, and people continue to develop those resources as they should. The city can encourage those. We've already made steps to have things become available in terms of liquor licenses, so people can have the kind of things that they want. The challenge is parking. We may have a solution coming for parking. The parking is the piece that I like about the Levinson project. So making sure that we have that opportunity available in other places around downtown so that people have places to stop while they shop are important.
I think we're doing pretty good as of right now. We have Hamilton Town Center, but I think what we need to focus on is more on the west side of the river. I think the east side is doing a pretty good job, especially with everything on 37. Now, I think we need to get the Riverwalk going. We need to look at, more into that. Downtown, I'm hoping that the Livingston project works. I really do. As far as parking, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to solve parking. Not in my lifetime, but we're working on it, and I think, frankly, parking is going to change with autonomous vehicles. I really believe that if autonomous vehicles are accepted by the public at the same rate cell phones were, and there's no reason to think they won't, that the whole parking equation is going to change. So I think we need to be careful about building very expensive parking garages, because I think they may become obsolete before we know it. But regardless, I think we've got a tremendous opportunity downtown with the Riverfront District. We now have a designated district downtown, and I mentioned a little bit about developing that west side of the river. I think it needs to be redeveloped on the same scale as downtown. It needs to be walkable. However, we also need to make sure that what distinguishes downtown from some of the other retail areas farther out is that it's local restaurants. And local restaurants, in order to thrive, need affordable places to go. It's very difficult for a local restaurant to open out at Hamilton Town Center. The rents are just too high. So we need to develop our local entertainment and local restaurants, and that's what I'm in favor of.
I see a two-part solution, especially in terms of it relates to downtown. First of all, I think in order to have more restaurants and more shopping options, and especially for shopping options to stay open later, we need more density in our downtown. We need more folks living in the urban core of our community. Studies have shown that millennials and empty nesters are looking for that urban lifestyle where they can park, drop off their bags from work, and walk to dinner every evening. So we need to invest in that, and that's what you're seeing with Levinson going forward. I will also say we need to make it easier to access downtown. We need to reduce, we have a traffic problem in Noblesville. We have to make it easier for folks to get to downtown. And not only just by car, but by foot, by bike, and other ways. And I'm excited for Pleasant Street expansion going on, which I know we'll talk at some later debate, as well as the Midland Trace Trail and the Levee Trail as well. We need it to make downtown more accessible for residents and add more residents to our downtown in order to have the diversity we need to continue to be the great place that Noblesville is.
This next question is, what will be your approach and your plan regarding advocacy and your relationship building with folks at the State House and with the Indiana General Assembly on issues that affect our community and legislation that affects the city?
Vince?
I did the last one.
That's a really good question, and I really don't know a whole lot about that, so I'm going to leave it at that. And Patrick said that was okay.
It is. We appreciate the honesty.
What will be my approach as far as dealing with the State House and our representatives? We need to make sure that our representatives are aware of our needs in Noblesville. The state controls a lot of the things that we do. The state holds the purse strings for a lot of the, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that they hold the purse strings, but the state controls a lot of the, for instance, tax abatements and so forth. That's all controlled by state statute. So we need to make sure that those things are working in our favor. And I guess the best I would say is I'd make sure that we would be in touch with the people who represent Noblesville in the State House and make sure they're aware of what our needs are.
Yeah, I believe communication is key with our partners of progress down at the State House, whether it be department heads to the governor's office to our state legislators. It's essential that we continue to work with Representative Goodrich and Senator Sparks, because the state does hold a lot of the power to what we have to do going forward. No one ever complained about having too little government and intervention in their life. And I truly believe that we have to work with our folks down at the State House to make sure that we have the access to the funding mechanisms and the grant programs in order to move us forward. I look at infrastructure, for example. We have two major state roads coming into Noble, actually three, with State Road 37, 38, and 32. We have to partner with NDOT on fixes for those in order to move people more freely through our community going forward. So our relationships with our state elected representatives are crucial to our future success going forward.
I agree. It's exactly what we need to do is continue to work with Representative Goodrich and Senator Spartz and our friends downtown so that they appreciate the needs of our community and we can work to make sure that we receive the funding. Noblesville and Hamilton County are donor counties. Our tax dollars do not come back to us in the measure that we send, but we need to continue to advocate to get back what we've sent down to the state so that we can pay for the things we need.
Norm?
There are certain things that on the administrative branch as mayor that you have control of and some of which you will not. The school system itself and the public library being an example. So how will you partner with both the school system and the public library to serve the community better? This is a question from the audience, by the way.
Okay. We are fortunate to have a robust and quality school system in Noblesville. I know when people move here, it virtually always is the number one reason a lot of people move to a community is you've got to have good schools. So we need to make sure that we maintain those high standards. Thank you to Julia and her colleagues for keeping those standards high. I would make the effort to collaborate with the schools as best we can. I know a lot of the decisions that are made in City Hall do end up impacting the schools, even though we don't necessarily control their budget, but we must collaborate because we work together. All of the people that we serve use both of those services. So we must continue to keep those lines of communication open. And the library, I'm amazed at the quality of our library as well. Libraries are not what they used to be, and if you haven't checked it out lately, their digital media lab is incredible. I just used it to transfer 2,000 slides to a thumb drive. It's amazing what's happening at the library, and we need to continue to support that.
First of all, I'm a proud Noblesville Miller and product of this school system, and I will say that our fates, Noblesville schools and the city of Noblesville, are tied together moving forward. Any business who's looking to relocate here or locate here, any family that is going to check on the strengths of our schools. We have a great relationship. We can have an even greater relationship going forward. One point of that was seen last spring. Before May 25th was discussed, we were already in conversations with the schools to add more school resource officers into our buildings across the school system. And then when May 25th happened, we accelerated those conversations, and we go and split the cost of those school resource officers in our school systems to keep our schools safe. So we know that is vital to not only the school's priority, but the city's priority is to protect our students going forward. And that's just one example of the collaboration that the city and schools have going forward, and we'll look for more ways as well.
Well, I think we have outstanding schools. I am completely biased on that topic, having spent 12 years on our school board, and I am so proud of the work that we've done there. And it's important that we maintain that collaboration. I know our superintendent regularly meets with the mayor. I think adding the library director to that conversation would also be beneficial. I think it's also important that we have regular conversations as the taxing entities of this community, because the decisions that the city makes, whether it's with TIFs or abatements, impacts the schools, impacts the library, and the decisions similarly that the schools make in terms of their facility needs impact the city's tax base. So we all need to be having those conversations together about how to best and most efficiently use our tax dollars for the benefit of all of our citizens. And so I want to make sure we maintain that great conversation we have.
I am too a proud Miller. Julie, thank you for everything that you've done. I think we do need to collaborate, especially with the school boards, and make sure that we do have, unfortunately what happened last May, we need to get the resource officers in there. But we also need to look too, and people have come up to me and asked me about it, but we need to also work with the school board and say, is it time for a second school, for a second high school? This is a very large school, and it takes a great amount of personnel to keep this place safe for our kids. And as far as the library goes, the last time I went to the library, they still had the card catalog.
We'll get you in one before the next forum.
Okay.
This is the last question we're going to take from the audience?
Well, Patrick, before Jenna gets to the last question, there were several audience members who wanted basically ask questions about fiscal responsibility and finance and the economy in Noblesville, but want to remind audience members that'll be part of the April 8th session. So all of the questions that you might have turned in or had questions about fiscal responsibility, that will be during the community conversation that will take place on April 8th.
Yes. Last question for the night.
Okay. This question is from the audience, and it relates to the mayor's relationship with the Common Council. How would you, what would be your philosophy as to your relationship with the council and asking challenging questions and promoting accountability of interested parties? And are there any changes that you would plan to make with regard to the Common Council?
Chris?
Appropriate question. I'd be happy to answer that. I think a great working relationship, as a member of the council, I think a great working relationship between the legislative branch of government and the executive branch of government is important. But I would say, as mayor, not only would I ask questions of the council members, I would expect the 9 council members to ask questions of me. They are elected in districts that are closer to the people, and I would expect them to voice their concerns with me and challenge me going forward. We are so fortunate to live in a democracy that has a form of government of checks and balances. I truly believe that the Common Council can can serve as a form of checks and balance for the administration, and I firmly believe that the administration should work hard to lobby for what they believe to get through the Common Council. But at the end of the day, it is the Common Council's goal and right to adequately fund the projects laid forward by the administration. I think that relationship needs to be healthy, but it needs to be vibrant, dynamic, and should be challenged on both sides.
I agree. I think that it is important that we have that great relationship, that we all understand what our common goals are. But ultimately, the mayor is the leader of the city, the elected leader. And so the mayor needs to be setting the vision. The mayor needs to share that vision with the council, because ultimately the council funds it. But the mayor needs to be setting what the vision is, gathering the input of citizens and creating that vision, and then working to implement it with the support of the council's funding. So making sure that you have that good relationship so that you can work together in developing what the vision is, and then working to implement it within the constraints of the budget we have.
I agree with Julie 100%. You know, the mayor is the executive leader, and he is the one that is to bring in the vision of making Noblesville move forward. But in that also, I agree with Chris that they do need to work together.
They do need to work together, but if I'm understanding what the questioner is getting at, it has seemed to me that this city council is not holding the mayor as accountable as they ought to. A lot of the votes that come through this council are 9-0. Sometimes it was 8-1. Mary Sue Rowland quit the council, and now it's 9-0. I would like to see more debate on the city council. And I'm told, well, a lot of that debate happens beforehand, behind the scenes. And so by the time it gets to the council, everybody kind of has already made up their mind. I would like to see that debate happen out in front of the public. And it's a big part of engaging with the public. The public will be more engaged if they feel that they have the opportunity to go out and actually see the robust debate happening right in front of them. I would also, and I don't know what the possibility is of this, I have spoken in front of the council multiple times over the past couple of years. You get 2 minutes, and I think it would be good to be a little more welcoming to the public, to get in front of the council, maybe take a little bit more time. I have a hard time talking in 2 minutes, much harder to talk in a minute and a half, Bob. But my minute and a half is up, so I'll make those points, and thank you.
I want to thank you all for submitting questions, and again, we will have an opportunity to get more of those as we go through the next couple of forums. Again, all questions that are submitted will be given to the candidates for them to look at and to consider. I want to allow each of the candidates to have their closing statements, and we'll go in the reverse order at which you opened with, and you'll have 90 seconds for that. So Julia, will you start?
Well, thank you again to the League and the Chamber for hosting us this evening. And thank you to our audience here and our audience watching online for attending. This is such a critical decision. And it's an exciting election for our community. important for all of us to carefully consider the applicants for the job of mayor. Our community is 10 times the size that it was when my parents moved here in 1966, and it's critical that we consider the voices of all of our residents, and we make the decisions about where this community is going to go for the next 50 to 100 years. I commit to making myself available, starting with coffee and donuts at Rebellion on the 26th, and I hope that you will all join me in those opportunities to ask questions and share your ideas about where our city needs to go moving forward. People choose Noblesville because they want to be part of our historic and authentic community. As I shared earlier, our communities thrive when we have that sense of love, security, and belonging. And people know that they belong when their voices are heard. I will create opportunities to ensure all of your voices are heard. If you're interested in more information of mine, certainly you can visit my website, juliachurchkozicki.com. I appreciate your time this evening and ask for your vote on May 7th.
I again like to thank the League and the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to make mine really short and sweet. I just want to thank you all for letting us come up here and give our views of what we are looking at for mayor. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you to the League and to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight. Thanks to all of you for coming tonight and those who submitted questions as well. Noblesville is my home. I live here. I was born here. My wife Julie and I are raising our 3 beautiful children here. And we call this city home for much of the same reason that you call it home, because it's a uniquely special place. I believe more than ever that there's no better place in the state of Indiana to live, work, and raise a family. I spent 7 years on the road for former Governor Mitch Daniels and his administration, and I got to visit hundreds of cities across the state, learning what worked and what didn't work. And I came to the same conclusion as you, that Noblesville is uniquely special. But that did not happen by accident. That happened because of a lot of hard work. Our neighbors, community, and leaders came together and built it brick by brick. And now it's our turn to do the same. We can build a city that's easier to get around, a city where you can find a good paying job or even start your own business, and a city that truly appreciates its past and history because we know that it is our pathway to the future. That's a vision that I have stood for as a member and past president of the city council, and it's a vision that I will work for as your next mayor. So thank you for being here tonight, and I too would ask for your vote on May 7th. Thank you.
And I also will thank the Chamber and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this, and thank all of you for coming. Tonight's session was about people and relationships. We all spend our careers establishing relationships with people, organizations, businesses. The relationships I have formed reflect my values. I've spent the past 13 years in this community serving and working with people involved with Noblesville Main Street and Noblesville Preservation Alliance, Promising Futures, the former Hamilton Center's Youth Service Bureau, HAND, Hamilton Area Neighborhood Development, the Legacy Fund, which is now known as Hamilton County Community Foundation. I tutored for United Way at Stony Creek School, became a Miller Ambassador, and graduated from the Hamilton County Leadership Academy. They were all about immersing myself in this community and have given me the background I need now to serve you, the people of Noblesville, as mayor. I said in my opening statement that getting people involved in the process is a core principle of my campaign. Things are pretty good in Noblesville. It's a great place to live. And when things are going well, it's easy to ignore politics and just go about your life. But decisions are being made now that have the potential to change our city significantly in the coming years. Making informed decisions about your political leadership is hard work, but it's important. And I congratulate all of you for doing that work tonight. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. I'll be staying around afterwards, so please come by and talk. Appreciate it.
Great. Candidates, I want to thank you. I want to tell you that I appreciate both the agreement that I heard on certain topics across the board. I want to thank you for the honesty and the little bit of candor that we heard as you shared, and we saw you as people and not just politicians up on stage. I hope that the creativity and the innovation that we've heard from your comments tonight will play out, and that even if you do not win in the election, you will hopefully be able to implement some of the ideas and thoughts from the other candidates that were heard here tonight as we do move forward in community. And finally, I hope that you heard something here that challenged you, that you either need to grow in knowledge in as you sit in this position, or that you may need to go back and revisit on where you sit in that, as you've heard from the people and you've heard from one another. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for putting yourself in a place where you're willing to be a servant and a leader for the community. It is not an easy seat, and so you're not taking it lightly as you go. Would you give them a round of applause for joining in the conversation tonight? Also, would you thank the panelists for hosting us and helping with the conversation? I want to give a special thanks to the Noblesville schools for hosting the forums. Each forum will be held here, and so know that this is where you'll come back to each time that we do that. We want to thank the staff, those who have worked with the lights and the microphones, and the people who will come and clean up after us after we are all gone, that get very little thanks in this. Also want to give a special thanks to Hamilton County Television for making sure that this gets out to people who are unable to be here tonight. We want to thank the chamber volunteers who showed up to help get things organized, as well as Lorna Steele with Noblesville Main Street, as she's always showing up to things in the community to make sure things run smoothly. And ultimately, yes, thank you voters for coming out, being engaged in the conversation, caring about what happens in this community, and showing up to hear it. We hope that you come back for the next 2 sessions and that you invite someone to join you and come be a part of this conversation as well. Bob, anything else before I dismiss them for the evening? I think so, yes. Thank you for coming out tonight. Be safe traveling home. If you want to hang out and meet the candidates, they will be out by their tables to talk to you. Thank you.